So before we stand, let's just do 2 or 3 stretches. So let's start with the one with the hands behind, just try to really arch the spine a little and just let the head start turning, moving. And then hands to prayer, and just reaching up with the hands, pulling the head right back. Pulling the chin down into the chest to stretch the back of the neck. And the hands up and out. And have the hands in this position. Relaxing the shoulders down through the elbows into the hands. But the hands being pulled back just makes the tendons ache a little. Keeping the arms straight, just bring them round to the front. And then lift them above the head. And then back down to the sides. So let's try a few of those. So that's the breathing in, if you like. So breathing out, breathing in, and breathing out. So it's a bit like the heart qigong, but angular. So breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And one more. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, and breathing out. Now just a few leaning over the knee. So both hands on one knee. So the torso is twisted. You're looking in that direction. And just trying to keep the back straight for as long as possible. So get down as far as you can and then just let the head continue dropping. And then use the hands to start yourself coming back up. So the arms are being used to protect the back. And then just a couple of the strong twists. So one hand pulled behind, other hand on the opposite knee. And breathe yourself round. Each time you exhale, you can get round a little further. And slowly come back round. And then the other side. Feel the two minds. You've got the centered, sober, quiet, heavy mind in the Dan Chan, which is also protective. And then you've got the light, eager mind that is trying to get round. Slowly release, and another couple. release slowly. And one more on the other side. And then slowly release. And then just bring it back to prayer for a moment. Pulling the chair up. We want to make sure that the pull generates, which the body follows. I'm not simply using a force to move my body. I'm using a little bit of force to generate an energy which my body sort of coasts along or surfs along. So there's always a delay between the application of the force, and the actual movement, and it can be really quite a long delay. What we're trying to do is just catch that light, cheerful, positive mind that allows energy to manifest. It's the most important thing, really. It's very similar to what the Chinese call beginner's mind. Pulling yourself down. Pushing down on the chair to let yourself float up. Pulling down. And float up. Let's try a few side to side, just opening the legs a little, widening the stance, pushing the chair one way to generate the flow of energy in the opposite direction, which you slowly flow along. The difficulty is staying with the energy. You know, when we do something that's new and we're not sure what we're meant to be doing, there's far more chance that energy is present than when we know. Because when we know how to do something, we tend just to use just enough force to get it done so that the mind can absent itself and think about something else. As soon as I feel that I know what I'm doing, that's the death of it, really. It's like poetry ever eludes understanding, and there's always deeper layers to the understanding that you achieve. So the next time you come to the poem, it's like it's new. And then let's just try a few turnings. So bringing the feet up and now pushing the chair forwards and back to make myself turn. So to make this hip, I'm using my right hand, so it's my right hip that's going to be moving forwards or back. If I push the chair, then the hip moves back. When I pull the chair towards me, the hip moves towards the chair. So if the chair is light and liable to move, then you can't use very much force. And it will just take time for the energy to appear. And then you just have to catch it. So if there's any sense of, oh, is that it? Or do I really feel that? You'll have lost the moment. Moving to the other hand. So when we use our hands in the world, we're normally moving things around, moving food towards our mouth, moving objects around the room. And when we use our legs, we're normally moving ourselves around. So here I'm trying to use the arms to move the body. So gravity streaming down. My body has to be round. So the limbs coming away from the spine in order to reach out and grab the world. My legs grabbing the ground, my arms grabbing the other person, and my eyes collecting images. Just imagine you've come out of the shower. So you're naked, the water's trickling down your body and the steam is rising from your body. So the gravity and the levity. And then we just want to get into movement. So the movement is always sort of elastic. So you can either have the movement of your body that would happen if you sank into the trampoline. If you sank into the trampoline, then the trampoline would throw you up away from itself. And then the other way of moving is like the bungee rubber. You know, as you move away from the bungee rubber, it stretches and then pulls you back towards it. So that would be the front foot. So let's try the trampoline first. Just sinking into the leg. I have to keep the leg soft so it can behave like a spring. I sort of sink into it and it's thrusting back. It must be thrusting back, otherwise I would be moving completely down. And I want to feel that as the energy that flows through me, very similar to working with the chair. And then I let myself follow that. I sink into the leg. There's a flow that comes up. And I let my body be taken by it. So it requires real lightness. It requires heaviness in the body to really be able to sink and empty into the leg. But the mood, the mind, the energy, the spirit must be really light. Otherwise, you just won't respond to this weak energy. Energy is always weak compared to forces. Sinking into the leg starts squeezing something up, and I let myself flow. Sinking into the leg like a spring, or think of the trampoline rubber and it's trying to push up. And eventually you let the body go with it. So the leg is bending so that it can straighten. The important part for us is the part where you seem to be going in both directions. So the body is still sinking into the leg, but the leg is generating the flow in the opposite direction. So this feeling that you're being torn, or John used to say, it's like being flayed, having your skin pulled off. So he used to love that word raw. So it's like your whole body's raw. And you can feel just how relaxed you need to be across the sacrum, otherwise this just won't work. Because all the energy from the legs has to pass through the sacrum effectively. And if that's locked, then there'll be a big block there. And then you'll have to use force. And then let's try a little bit the same thing, the same way of moving, sinking into the leg and bouncing out of it, but with 1 foot forwards. So I sink into the back leg, and then I feel this energy being thrust out of it. And I move with that and sink into the front leg. The energy starts moving back, so I let it establish and then I go with it. It's like two people playing catch with a ball. It's like you're throwing this ball of weight from one leg to the other, but using the springiness in the leg rather than the force in the leg. We just want to appreciate that, energy is it's just mind, really. It's an aspect of mind. If I'm not in the right mood, or my mind is disturbed because of other things that are happening in my life, the energy just won't really appear. And that's when you have to use force to get the job done. And then that just makes matters worse. This is why meditation before practice is just so important. You just get a little bit of quiet inside, and then you can just watch the energy playing, sinking, it's throwing back, and I go with it. So it is very much like being on a swing. You just get taken, the body is taken by energy. And then let's try a little with the other foot forwards. So sinking into the leg. And the leg throws me back. So it's all from the relaxation. It has to be relaxed. Relaxed in the sense of not using force rather than flaccid. Obviously, if my leg is completely loose, I'll fall down. So force just means hardness, really. So if my leg becomes forceful, it sort of locks itself into a mode of being, it's either straightening or bending. I just want to be immensely flexible so I can slip from one to the other. It's always changing. And it's changing on every level. That's what's difficult for the mind to grasp. And just feel the natural turn. So here my front leg is throwing me back, and I will naturally turn to where it is that I'm heading. Yeah? So as I sink into the leg, as the energy comes up, my body will naturally turn, and then I'll sink into this leg. And again, I'll naturally turn. So when you really get into it, it's like there's never a back foot. Because no sooner are you coming out of the front foot, you've turned, and now the other foot is the front foot. Okay. So let's just bring it back to riding horse. So the sacrum, most important bone in the body. So generally we have very little awareness of it, and we want to cultivate maximum awareness. So that's like the bone we're most aware of. So this thing of sort of spreading across the sacrum, that would happen naturally if the sacrum was really energized. So you can imagine your sacrum sort of swelling with activity and energy, and that's forcing, squeezing your hips away from it, and then they can reach down the legs and grab the ground. And it's the same here with the arms coming from the mid-back. And now let's try a little bit of moving with the pulling leg. So I sink into this leg, and my emptying leg really straightens, and then it just springs back and pulls, and I start moving towards it. So I straighten the leg and then pull. And again, I want to feel this stream of energy. It's like the straightening establishes this line from this foot all the way down to this foot. And then that spark of spirit that makes me change direction, change from straightening to bending, is enough to reverse the flow, if you like, and allow my body to move towards the empty foot. So my body is now being pulled towards the empty foot rather than being pushed out of the full foot. But the turn is the same. I'm always turning towards the direction towards the leg that I'm moving into. The value of this way of moving over the trampoline, the springing out of the leg, is that you just have the both feet, and you tend to stay down rather than come up. When you bounce out of the back leg, you tend to come up. So here I'm pulling, but really trying to keep this hip bending. So my sacrum is sinking as I move. It's not rising at any point. Feel the straightening as though it's coming from like a sheath of muscle that's tightening and squeezing the leg into straightness. So it's not the muscle here. I mean, it is, but we want to get away from that feeling of using these lever type actions. So I squeeze the leg into straightness, and then I just release that. I relax that, and it will spring back. Like the bungee rubber that naturally just pulls you back up. Squeeze the leg and release that all the time, trying not to let the hip rise. When you start pulling, fold in the hip so that the sacrum can remain sinking. And then just start getting the pulling leg just a little bit more active by lifting the heel. So I just lift the heel. So it's like there's a new dimension added, which is almost like a dimension of playfulness, which you'd never really get in the trampoline side, the bouncing from the back leg. So the spirit here is just a lot more playful and light than the spirit with the other way of moving. The pull, wee. And then it really does turn you towards it. And just remember, we're not really working in order to exercise the body. It's much more to catch the right mind. This is why, working in groups with others is important, because it's difficult to catch it when you're on your own. So as the spirit sparks here, as you change direction, wow, you sink. That's what lifting the heel helps. So lightness, you're moving towards the light side rather than away from the heavy side. Now let's try backwards and forwards again, but with the same way of moving. So just this exercise. So I'm bending the front leg to pull myself into it. And as I come into it, the energy that's in there is being squeezed out into the opposite hand. And then here I pull with this leg. And you can lift the heel again, just to spark the spirit and loosen the hips, the joints in the legs. Yeah, so the knee goes out, doesn't just go forwards, and then you get a real fold in the hip here. And just relaxing into that. So the sacrum just naturally gets stretched into those open holes in the groin that your active leg is creating. So no sense of force if you can help it. Yeah, so as I come into this front leg, it's not my body coming forwards that's pushing the person. It's the energy that's coming out. We want the legs to be this really strong, agile foundation base for the upper body to express the energy. And for that, the sacrum just has to be heavy so that it can hold you in a vertical position. And then you just become very vigilant, become very aware of the world around you. You almost lose awareness of what it is you're actually doing and wake up to the world you're in. And then a little with the other foot forwards. The knee tries to escape. I'm not doing a mechanical action in order to move my body. I'm sparking the spirit. So really, it's just the imagination, really. So I just, I see that like a bird that's just flying, trying to escape, and that's my knee, and that will start me moving. But for that to be capable of moving you, you have to have a mind that is incredibly light so that your body will respond to these really delicate forces. It's all mind, but thinking does just not come into it. Thinking is a completely incorrect way of using the mind. Thinking just blots out so many dimensions of energy. When you think pathologically, habitually, then you basically become like an android. You lose your humanity. So it's interesting that as our technology has advanced and we've become more and more artificial, if you like, so have we as people. So one thing our technology cannot even simulate is spirit, because spirit is the energy of life. It's the life force. That lovely quote, I can't remember who it is now. Move slowly enough so that you can feel God at every instant. That's really just what we're doing, just moving slowly enough so we can just feel the energy. And now let's bring it back. Reaching forwards, but it's gentle. Reaching forwards and pulling back. So yielding. My hand is reaching forwards, but my chest is already sucking back, hollowing out the shoulder. And this is the mother reaching out for the crying child. And we do it all the time. We just want to make a study of it, make a research of it. If you're going to kiss someone on the lips, then you're both moving towards each other, but you don't clash. So there's a point just before contact where you're actually moving backwards in order to soften the blow. That's exactly what's happening here. I'm going forwards, but already coming back. So there's no standing still. That's what John always used to say. There's going forwards and there's going back, and you're just balancing the two all the time. If you stand still, you'll gather inertia and it will just take time and energy to get you moving again. And again, it's like tearing two things rubbing against each other, moving in opposite directions. So what people find difficult is just allowing their mind to extend down the arm and out of the hand beyond their own body. So what I do in my classes now, I just get them working with each other in pairs, and one person is standing in front of the other, but some distance away, so they can't actually touch. And then they both reach out as though to shake hands, but they're too far away for the hands to touch, but they just keep that reach going in their mind. So just imagine that you're reaching out for something, it's just a bit too far away, but you're starting to soften. Nitzan used to practice this in the class by getting the students to throw medicine balls to each other. Light ones about this big. So they'd have to see this thing coming and then just go with the ball as they caught it, otherwise it would hurt their hands. So it's that feeling here. You're catching something that's moving towards you. Everything is moving, all is energy. And that naturally curves the thing and turns it into a circle. So when you really get into that yielding, all of your movements become circular. So what was reaching forwards and pulling in the rope becomes the two circle exercise. And then once I've got it established in my arms, I want to feel the same thing happening in the legs. It's these points here, softening, the whole opening up to receive the other. So Emily Dickinson, she talks about the center and the circumference. So at the center, there's matter, there's the known. And on the circumference is there's spirit. And in between, there's energy. So spirit is always outside you, sparking away, and you can either respond to it or ignore it. It's entirely up to you. We want to get ourselves to the point where we just can't resist. It's what John, he said, didn't he? To succeed at Tai Chi, you need to fall in love with Tai Chi. So the circumference is the edge between the known and the unknown. So beyond it, there's mystery and darkness. And let's bring it back to riding horse. Let the mind come into the sacrum and let it expand. And now let's try a little bit of this one. Your knees and hips. The knees are breaking out and up, and the hips are breaking in and down. And it's turning me. It's like the 2 feet are sort of fighting with each other. Because as I bring up the heel of one foot, it's as though it's pushing me into the other foot, but this leg is straightening and trying to push me into this foot. So there's this sort of elastic tussle going on all the time. And then just start relaxing a little bit. So you're allowing movement in at every level. Right. But the journey that we're on is it's really just a journey into higher and higher refinement, getting more energy, more movement, not power or strength, but just activity. So that everything is just totally active and full of movement. And now let's lift the leg. So coming into the foot with the circle, putting the big toe down, around the back of the heel, around the outside edge, through to the toe, and cranking the leg up to help the lower back flatten and the sacrum and tail sink down into the supporting leg. So this thing of encircling the foot, that's basically what we want, the feeling that whenever we approach anything, it's like we're making a circle around it, we're embracing it. Nothing's really direct unless you want to attack. So keep to a yielding mind. A way of using the eyes and using your energy that's more like listening than actually seeing. Feel the tail becoming alive. I pull the knee up and it's sort of pulling my bum under, but my tail is waking up and trying to erupt backwards. And that again is just a higher frequency of energy. I always tell my students when they're falling around the place, it's good. Something's waking up. And now going around the figure of 8 around the foot. So through the middle, around the heel the other way, back through the middle of the foot and around the toes. And it's trying to activate the heel really, the opposable thumb of the heel. This bit here, so we go around the heel. And then the toes will naturally grab as they're more active. So let's just squat down. And then the hands on the floor, just bring a bit of weight forwards. Feel the arms filling from the ground with strength. So the strength rises and the relaxation sinks. And pushing back onto the feet. using the muscle to generate energy. So I'm not just feeling a hard ground and then pushing against it. With my mind, I'm squeezing with the arms here to inject into the ground, like I'm injecting a stream of energy into the ground. Then if I'm light enough of heart, then an energy will just come up in the opposite direction and my body can go with it. And then when I pull myself forward, it's as though my hands are glued to the ground. And as I start pulling with the hands, it's like the ground sort of stretches up, like strings of chewing gum on your feet when you walk and you stand on chewing gum. So I pull the hands towards me. The ground momentarily becomes elastic, and that is enough to get a flow of energy which I can flow along. John always used to say that you can't use words to describe the internal. Because all you can do is use words to describe an external situation which is similar. Let's do a bit of stretching. So just extending a foot. And moving into the other foot. And across again. And the other side again. Feel the tail. And then let's just sit and open the legs. Trying to feel the mind that would allow your legs to open just a little more. That's how we use the imagination to help us change. Change is difficult. And so many of the changes that we're after, they just escape us because we don't sort of feel them. This is why the imagination is so important. So you have to see the place you're moving towards. And that's the job of a teacher, really, to point you in the right direction, but really tell you what you ought to be feeling. If only you were a little bit more relaxed and lively. And just leaning over a leg. And the other side. Shall we do a bit more meditation? Like 20 minutes, and then we'll just finish off with our normal stretching. Feel the arms as we're sitting. John used to say the arms should feel like a hoop or a bicycle tire that you've draped around your shoulders. So it's basically two ward-offs. And ward-off, the shape of the arm in ward-off is a balance between the levity and the gravity. So the spirit, the levity, is wanting the arms to straighten. So that's this, it's wanting this to happen, the hands to escape. And the gravity is doing the opposite, it's trying to pull everything back to the Dan Chen. So the miracle of this mudra, this hand shape, is that we can really feel both. The hands are wanting to do this, the elbows are trying to move apart, but because one hand is stuck on the other, there's like a grip. And yet at the same time, the two thumbs, the tips of the two thumbs are very gently pushing into each other. So you've got this in the hands trying to drift apart, and the thumbs pushing together is this gripping into the Dan Chen. So it's a bit like pulling the stick and pushing the stick, but at the same time. All the time we're just trying to feel any position we get ourselves into, any seeming stillness to be a balance of opposing movements. So this is very much a circle, in your mind at least. I mean, externally it can look quite different. The elbows here are a little bit like the knees when we're standing. So when we're standing, the knees are trying to go forwards and away and up. So here the elbows are trying to go out and forwards and up. And yet my Dan Chen, my center of gravity, is drawing the hands down. So there's those two movements that are balanced. So that's the circle of the arms. And then you can feel the legs being a bit like a figure of eight. This is how, you know, when people sort of draw like a symbol of the person meditating, they often use a figure of eight to depict the legs. So that's something that is felt. You can just have your mind flowing along it, or just see it as like an expansion from here that's coming in to the Dan Chen again. And then we have the spine, the vertical, the line, the vertical line. So this feeling that the head is extending beyond itself and upwards, and also a sense that my sacrum is trying to extend down. And if you get that, then the tail will naturally start to wake up. It will want to join that line. Normally it's sort of curled up a little bit. We want the tail to wake up and extend. For me, that's one of the big secrets that we were never told. The tail. Okay, now let's try the rubbing the hands sequence. Relaxing the shoulders down into the arms. It's the relaxing shoulders that produces the pressure of one hand into the other, not strength in my arms. But all the time when you're rubbing, really have something gripping here, mind, but also a little bit of tightness in the muscles. Like you're just keeping yourself under control, keeping yourself stable whilst you've got all this movement going on in the upper body. And now rubbing the knees. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but at some point slip into alternating. And this ability to alternate, to turn, to allow humor into the situation. It's very much like being in two minds. It's like you see both sides of the argument. So people will often see it as like contradiction. You know, the teacher, remember John, who's always contradicting himself, he'd say one thing in one sentence and then something else in the next, which would contradict the first one. But it's never black and white. Sometimes it's one, but sometimes it's the other. And the rational mind doesn't like that. It's feeling that you can't really say much about anything because it's always different. It's like Derrida's difference. You know, you just spell it with an A rather than E. For him, difference, in French, it's the same word for difference and deferral, to defer. So the meaning is always different, but it's always being deferred as well. So it's never what you think it is. It's very much the world of energy. And then let's rub the hands again. And then just placing the hands over the sacrum, over each joint. Feeling the heat you've generated seeping into those joints. It's like we're trying to just soften the wax to help it melt. So all these movements start coming in. I'm just trying to wake up the animal inside, if you like, the inner child, the wild animal you contain, the Freudian unconscious. Okay, and now let's rub the hands again. You know, when you watch a martial arts movie, there's a sense that you become the hero. You feel what the hero's feeling. It's great to do Tai Chi after you've watched a martial arts movie because it's completely different. It's the same when you're watching nature films, really. You become the animal or you feel the animal that's already inside you. And then just placing the hands over the heart. I've got this, feeling the warmth seeping into the heart. And then just start the head turning. All the time, trying your best to be energetic. So in other words, using the mind to generate a movement which the head follows. And then the hands together and just up and out. And now just make fists. Imagine you're grabbing two handles and you're pulling them in. There's a lot of resistance. So you're pulling the shoulder blades together and then you open the hands as now as though you're pushing two objects away. So just in and out, but really against resistance. You have to imagine, well, I'm really pushing something out. And then here I'm pulling something. With my students, when we work together, we're using each other to help feel the resistance. So one person is resisting the movement of the other. Not trying to stop the movement, but just make it a little bit more difficult. Bringing the hands round to the front, keeping the arms straight until they touch, and then just fold them into prayer. And now rowing. So reaching forwards, letting the spine really bow, so the head's looking down, and then pulling the elbows back, twisting the arms so the hands would look up, and really arching backwards, trying to pull your elbows towards each other behind you. And then the opposite. Reaching forwards, the shoulder blades really pull apart, reaching down each arm, and then you pull the elbows back and the shoulder blades really pinch together at the back. And again, I'm working against resistance. These movements are difficult. Every millimeter is difficult. So that's mind continuous. Imagining resistance is, it's important because most of our minds are far too flitty. They're scattered. So we need some exercise that just forces the mind to stay concentrated on one thing. And then let's try some of these sphincters. So now just pulling into the belly, almost like it collapses inwards. And then pushing everything out. It's the same action in the spine, really, bowing the spine to pull everything in, and then arching the spine to push everything out. Try and let all the ring muscles tighten. So the eyes clench, the mouth tightens, the fists tighten. Then everything opens, your eyes bulge open. And then you can really scream as well, silent screams, the mouth, wow. And then everything comes back in. Ooh. So here it's like you're becoming a really primitive, simple creature. Like a worm, it's just a strip of muscle. We're just trying to get ourselves into positions where, or states where words just don't come in. Imagine a bodybuilder, he gets underneath that heavy weight, it takes it off the bar, sinks down with it, and then he has to basically just explode to get that bar to slowly creep up. And words just wouldn't come into it. If they did, it would just completely diminish the spirit and the energy. The world that we live in is just so totally saturated in words and language. And we're just trying to touch regions where they're not only absent, but they're totally inappropriate. Okay. Now let's just rub the hands again, and we'll do the eyes to finish. And then the eyes palming, trying to block out all the light, feeling the heat of the hands relaxing the eyes, feeling that heat drifting through to the back of your head. And then closing the eyes or keeping them closed, just let the hands come up. Keeping the eyes closed and then the hands out to the side, arms straight. And then just open the eyes, but without letting them focus on anything. So keep them blurred. So just open them just a little. And then start snaking with the hands. So we want the hands far enough back so that we're not really sure if we can see with our peripheral vision or just feel. There's these sort of shadows wandering around in right on the edges, but we can definitely feel something. There are various devices we can use to just slip into energy, during our day. In a way, the easiest one is just, if you're standing, just let the legs bend very little. As soon as you let the legs give and bend, you hook into gravity. So you'll feel the flow down and then you can feel the flow up. And another one is just let the eyes go out of focus. And then you just be aware of the peripheral vision, the circumference. Having the eyes open but blurred is quite different than having them closed. In a sense, there's more energy when they're open but blurred. Another device is just breathing through the small hole, so making the breath difficult as it comes in and squeezes out. And then just let the hands come up and down into prayer. Feel the vertical line extending upwards, but also stretching the tail as it extends down. You can get those cushions which have like a hole at the back for your tail to extend down into, so that your sitting doesn't in any way crush into the tail.